Often the analogy used to describe the preparing for labor and birth to be that of preparing for a marathon. Would you spend months and months training and preparing, or wake up one morning and just do it? I want to offer a different analogy. We need to prepare for labor and birth the way that we prepared for the nursery. So let's get into it. Hey Fearless friends, I'm Alex, certified child birth educator and birth doula. I love empowering mamas to have a fearless labor, birth, and postpartum. You may be looking at me thinking, what, Alex? You want us to prepare for labor and the birth of our baby the way that we prepared the nursery for them? What does that even mean? Well, I don't know about you guys, but when I prepared the nursery for my little one, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that I poured into that little room. Okay, maybe not so much blood, but definitely some sweat and tears. That sounds to me a lot like labor. Preparing the nursery is a labor of love for the little one that is coming into the world. Putting together the crib, you are mentally preparing to lay down that beautiful little baby to sleep in that bed. You've probably looked into the safety of that type of crib. You probably chatted with some of your friends who maybe have babies and discussed the different types of cribs they have. And you probably looked into safe sleep. When you're setting up the rocking chair, or your partner is setting up the rocking chair, you may have been thinking about and mentally preparing for those sleepless newborn nights of nursing while rocking in that rocking chair. And you probably have talked to some people about comfort measures that they used while in the newborn days to make nursing at 2 a.m. just a little bit easier. Whether that was their favorite nursing pillow, or the best white noise to help put baby back to sleep, or the nipple cream that they used to help with the cracked nipples, whatever it was, you probably discussed that with some of the people that you trust. As you maybe repainted the room, you had to go look for the color, go get the color, buy the paint and the accompanying accessories that work with that color of paint. And you probably even had a to-do list for your partner. Now, mama, it's not much different in our preparation for labor and birth of our babies. We need to look at the options that we're planning on using or not using, especially when it comes to pain medication, intervention, and so on. It's important to have your birth partner know your hopes and dreams about the birth of your baby. And it is absolutely vital, no matter how you are planning on bringing this baby into the world, for you to have your brain in the right place when you go into labor. To really get into it, let's start with the physical. Now, I just want to explain one thing right now. Unfortunately, I'm trying to keep this video pretty short, so I'm just gonna do some jot notes, and I really encourage you to take some notes. I encourage you to look deeper into these things. I'm also gonna have some more videos coming on some of the topics that I'm talking about, but this is just a very basic ways to prepare for labor, a list for you. So first, we're saying physically, the type of birth that you want to have, you need to know how to have it. If you're wanting to have a beautiful water birth at a birth center, or a water birth in your tub at home, you'd probably have to look into your area and see if you have to hire out a midwife. Here in Alberta, Canada, we can't have a GP or an OBGYN at a home birth. They only do deliveries in the hospital. If you want to have a home birth here, you have to go with a midwife. If you're wanting a cesarean section, you can't go for a midwife, you have to go with an OBGYN. So first off, just knowing the type of birth that you want, you have to look for the proper provider that can provide that type of birth for you. And that's something you have to do way before. The next thing to look into is interventions. What are you okay with? What are things that you're wanting to have? If you are someone who wants that epidural, learn about how it works in your body. What are the benefits and risks of using it? When is the best time to get to the hospital to get the epidural, for example? If you're someone who is not wanting any intervention, I still encourage you to look into the interventions that'll be offered at your birthplace. So for example, with my second baby I had here in January, I had him at a birth center, and I knew that narcotics and other higher pain relief options weren't one for me, but I knew that laughing gas or nitrous oxide was available. And so I put on my birth preferences list that option of pain relief. And because I knew it was there, I knew I could put it on my birth preferences list, and I knew the risks of it. So knowing that kind of stuff of the interventions that you are okay with or that you're hoping for is really important. Going forward, write a birth preferences list. If you've hired out a doula, ask her to sit down with you and write that list of things that you'd be okay with having, things that you really don't want to have, what the space of your birth looks like in your brain. And if you haven't hired a doula, that's okay. Most doulas, for a price, will sit down with you and help you write a birth preferences list. This is a service I offer, and I absolutely love doing it to help foster this beautiful birth space for people who maybe don't want or don't need a doula in their birth space. Look into different ways of physically preparing your body for labor. Things like squatting throughout pregnancy, forward leaning to help position baby into a really optimal position for labor and birth. Looking into things like chiropractics or physio or acupuncture to help your body stay loose, to help your body not get tense. A tense body in labor can be something that brings a lot of pain, when pain doesn't necessarily have to be a feeling in labor. Some of the things that I just talked about, the squatting and the forward leaning, I have a video coming about ways to physically prepare in the last few weeks of pregnancy, as well as the entirety of pregnancy, to prepare your body best for labor. Next is mentality. Knowing what to look for when it comes to the beginnings of labor are going to help you so much in the mind game that is the last few weeks of pregnancy. A lot of women get closer and closer to their estimated due date and become more and more antsy, just saying, when is it gonna happen? I really want baby here already, things like that. So knowing what to look for is really helpful to stay mentally strong going through the last few weeks. I have another video of ways of knowing if labor is beginning or could be starting soon. Knowing when and how to call your birth team, to call them, and then also your doula or your childcare, whoever it may be that you need to notify. They will let you know how to call them. They will let you know when to call them or when to go into the hospital. And you should have that written down, posted on your wall, or put onto your fridge so that when labor does start, mentally you know exactly where to look and where to point your partner. Next, emotionally, one of the biggest, most important preparation for labor is your brain, okay? Knowing your fears around labor and birth, pinpoint it, talk about it, give it a face, and then work through it. Learn what it is that will help you overcome that fear. It's amazing what pinpointing a fear and addressing it can do in a labor space. I can really speak into that because fear is a huge player in our labor and birth of our babies. Because I am so passionate about getting you to the space where you go into labor without fear, with your fearless cape on, and you're just ready to take it on. The next thing when it comes to your emotions is you need to trust your birth team. If you don't, or if you feel uncomfortable around them, I would encourage you to either try and figure that out or hire a new birth team. So if you've hired a doula and they have done something in maybe a prenatal meeting that made you feel uncomfortable, address it or find a new doula. I am a huge believer of the right doula for the right family. And not every family is gonna want to go with me as their doula, and that's okay, because I'm not going to be the best doula to be at every family's birth, right? So I think that's a really important thing, is you have to trust your birth team through and through. Next, you have to trust your body. I believe that we are intricately built to grow, nourish, birth, and then continue to nourish our babies and heal in all of that. Even if you end up with a C-section, your body still knows how to heal from that and still knows how to produce milk, be able to nourish your baby, because we are so intricately made to do that. So trust your body And if you don't trust your body, talk to someone, talk to people, go watch positive birth stories. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Tell your brain, okay, like, thank you for taking care of me, but I don't need to be in survival mode right now. I want to have a beautiful birth. Like, I'm going to get to the hospital on time to get the epidural so that I have the best birth experience. Or maybe I am going to get in at that birth center so that I can have the beautiful water birth that I so desperately want, and be able to believe that. Fear is the #1 pain causer in birth. And if you live in fear and if you don't trust your body, then you will tense, which will cause more pain, which will then cause more fear. We'll talk more about that cycle in another video. Just to wrap up, so the biggest things is that physically, you need to know how to have the birth that you want. Know which provider you need to have for what kind of outcome. The next is to have a birth preferences list. Go through that with a doula or hire a doula. I am a firm believer that doulas are a beautiful addition to your birth space. Other and last physical one is to start moving your body in a way that's going to promote really good positioning for baby. And I encourage you to check out that video when it comes out. Next is mentally. Know these signs of labor, knowing how to contact and when to contact your care team. And last but not least, emotionally, we touched on fear, pinpointing your fears, knowing that you need to trust your birth team or changing them up, knowing that you need to trust yourself and your body, and looking into positive birth experiences of the experience that you want to have, and working on your mindset. And finally, I encourage you to get your partner to read The Birth Partner. Learn how to be a solid partner in birth. Learn things like the double hip squeeze, counter pressure, acupressure to help balance out the pains of labor and the surges. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you come back for more. If you try any of these things, I'd love to hear about them in the comments section. Here's to you having the most fearless labor, birth, and postpartum. We'll catch you on the next one.